Welcome to the world united. Welcome to the world united.
Is Steve Robertson. He's the founder, CEO of Evolving Planet 7 and Project Peace on Earth. His topic today is creating world peace through living your life purpose. Steve Robertson is an acclaimed journalist and author on the spiritual development and international peace. His book is endorsed by several national best-selling authors. He is the founder, CEO of Evolving Planet 7 and Project Peace on Earth, which produced the famed Picasso Love All image in Jericho, Palestine, acclaimed as one of the 49th most iconic UN images. He conducted medical mission that returned the eyesight to 40 blind people and has produced several international sacred music peace concerts out to several millions of homes from the Middle East. Produced a major benefit album with Peter Gabriel, Roger Waters, Stuart Copeland, and 30 major musicians, and much more. We are truly honored to have you here with us today, and I'm going to just turn that over to you, Stephen.
All right. Thank you so kindly. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you very well, thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. I'd like to just, if I can, dive to the root problem of consciousness on the entire planet. I grew up as a fundamentalist Christian young man, and when I first heard the quote, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," I said that's to myself. I said that's the ultimate truth. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And as I traveled around the world and just saw the monstrous ways in which we were treating one another, I concluded that this is the root cause of the entire problem. And that's because we are loving our neighbors just like we love ourselves. And we love ourselves horribly. So until I can find love and kindness, care, and compassion for myself, the best I can possibly do is project my craziness onto other human beings, onto the animals, and onto Mother Earth. This is an inside job. I mean, the Jesus figure said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the light. Most Christians really don't understand what that means. And it means, have I not said, ye are all the sons of God? And then he goes on to say, greater things I have done, and even the least among you can do greater than I. I don't know how else you interpret this other than, I did it and you can do it and you can go further than I. If you first find, as he says, the kingdom of heaven which dwelleth within. Now he says you cannot enter this kingdom of heaven until ye become as a child. So, in other words, only until you're in this metaphorical state of innocence can you, as it says in Psalms, be still and know that I am God. And only then can you know when God said, let there be light. And that the word, and by the way, the word means primary harmony. That's what it translates to. And the word was made flesh and full of grace and dwelt among us. Which is why Einstein states energy and mass are different forms of the same thing. So in part, my talk is on how we've co-created hell on earth. And this is an opportunity through this beautiful parliament to learn to discover how we can co-create heaven on earth. The Nada Brahma, oldest Vedic spiritual text on the planet, I mean, it states God is sound and sound is God. I'm sorry, I really don't know where you go from there. This whole thing is done through sound. This whole thing is frequency. And this is in large part the dedication of the body of work that we've done through broadcasting sacred music from sacred sites. And most importantly, learning how to discern, how to identify whether information is coming from your higher self or your, let's say, your ego mind or your fearfully attached self. Let me give you as an example. Think of this. Every thought, every spoken word, is basically, it's a mantra. It's a prayer. It's an incantation. It's a spell. Now, why is this? Well, every word is made of what? Letters. Every letter has its own specific phonetic sound based on whether it's a consonant or a vowel sound. So in essence, every time you say any word, think any word, it's really like hitting several keys on a piano simultaneously. You're sending out a chord of causation. Does this make sense? So I want to help us discriminate, learn how to effectively use our thoughts to choose to be loving or kind or caring. And so if I may backstep for just a moment, if I give you a tomato seed and I ask you to plant this in fertile soil, out of the tomato seed, is there any way whatsoever that you can get a palm tree? And the answer is, of course, no. It is the same with your words. Listen to the words we have been co-creating for thousands upon thousands and thousands of years. And this is a pivot point. This can be an opportunity to completely shift consciousness. And I do suggest that, there is from a Hindu perspective, a very deep sanskaric groove in the consciousness that has us repeating these things subconsciously all the time. And nevertheless, we're co-creating, in a direct linear correlation. And the bottom line is this: if you listen to the way most people, and even in these conversations, people will use the word need repeatedly. So ask yourself this: is the word need closer to a state of abundance or lack? If you conclude, as most do, lack, then ask yourself this: is lack closer to a state of love or fear? If you conclude, as most do, fear, then ask yourself this: if something's closer to a state of fear, is fear closer to a state of responding or reacting? And if you conclude reacting, then it basically means this: anytime you think the word need, and or more importantly, speak the word need, because bottom line is, your thought, when you think something, that's a certain frequency of causation. It's pulling people, situations, circumstances into form. When you speak the word need, you're accelerating mass, people, situations, circumstances into form. So the bottom line is, if you're using the word need to think and or co-create some future opportunity, then the reality is the only outcome that is possible, again, take the tomato seed, plant it in the soil, you can't get a palm tree out of it, you get a tomato seed, that's it. So the only thing that you can get when you use that word need is fear, lack, and reaction. Period. The end. Same with the word should. Same with the word must. Same with the word have to. And so this is a really, really critical point. It is imperative to shift our vernacular in order to co-create. It says, in the beginning was the Word. The Word means primary harmony. The Word was with who? The Word was with God. God said, let there be light. We've co-created, we've chosen to this point to co-create hell on earth. Beautiful parts, sometimes not, sometimes heaven in aspects. Which do we choose to co-create? Complete heaven or complete hell? Or somewhere there in between? It all has to do with our word patterns. So if you instead use words that are of the conscious moment, of the present moment, words like I choose, I will, I want, that's required. Now, this co-creates a completely different set of outcomes. So what we're really talking about is co-creating from the hero's journey. The hero leaves the village of conformity. They go to pursue the grail, slay the dragon, whatever it is. They go through a lot of tests to prove their character, to prove their worth. They finally get to the really grand test. And that grand test is called the Bridge of No Return. And only the few heroes will cross that bridge. And when the hero gets to the other side of the bridge, they turn to the bridge. What do you think they may do? They burn that bridge to the ground. Why? Because they can never go back to where they were. The only thing they can focus on is what they do want. No longer what they don't want, what they do want. And this is what I outline very specifically in my book, The Power of Choice, Success in Your Life Purpose. I spent 35 years trying to figure out this whole thing. And the bottom line is this. The ego mind has a very limited vocabulary. It can only use words of fear, lack, and reaction. Period. The end. If it could use words of enlightenment, of the present moment, of choice, of empowerment, if it could use that vocabulary, you would be a crazy human being. You'd have no way to discern between truth and illusion. I promise you, look into this. Think of this as an example. You see me right now. I have a black shirt on. So just, say inwardly, Steve, you have a black shirt on. And I hear you say that back to me. And here's my response. No, I agree with you. Steve, you have a black shirt on. No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. Is that congruent or incongruent? Steve, would you like to go to the movies with me? No, I'd love to do that. Congruent or incongruent? This happens all the time. So what we're talking about doing is bringing our mind into a state of present moment clarity. Alex Huxley's book, Island, enlightened people decide to leave the mainland. Too many distractions there. They get to the island. Still lots of distractions. They gather. How do we stay in the enlightened state? Someone observed that the island was full of thousands upon thousands of parrots. And they concluded they were going to teach the parrots 2 words, which they knew the parrots would repeat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if they listened to those words, they would stay in the enlightened frequency. And guess what the two words were? Pay attention. Pay attention. Because when you choose to pay attention, your mind's not in the future. Your mind's not in the past. Paying attention is in the now. This is true mindfulness. This is true meditation. Monitoring your thoughts. No, I agree with you. Or no, I'd love to go to the movies with you. Listening to these incongruencies and really framing what we truly do want to have to accomplish instead of what we don't want. Most of the people start with what I don't want that. Great, the universe goes, perfect, we're going to show you more of what you don't want. And when you get clear about what you really do want, all of a sudden you go, wow, miracle. So this is a constant process of being mindful of the inspirations of thought, which are trying to show you actions to take. See, Buddha said all that we are is a result of what we have thought. King Solomon said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The word man, by the way, is a Sanskrit word. It means consciousness, not male flesh and bones. And Emerson said, the ancestor of every action is thought. All of this boils down to thought. If you're choosing thoughts which are based in fear, lack, and reaction, by these keywords like need, should, have to, must, it's like ding, 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 information promulgated from the ego mind. Do the opposite. Get clear about what you really do want to create. And when you start hearing words like I choose, I will, I want, I require, this is a different vocabulary. This is a vocabulary of a co-creator, a conscious co-creator. And by the way, this is not metaphysical mumbo jumbo. If you look at the Heisenberg principle, the reality is basically this. Thomas Young, a French, English physicist in the late 1700s, did an experiment called the double slit experiment. And he concluded that he had a theory, he said light travels in a wave-like pattern. And that was held as truth in the physics community for a long period of time. Einstein came around about 100 years later. He goes, no, it doesn't work that way. Light travels as though it's being shot out of a gun in a straight line. Now, both of these, were conclusive. And how could this possibly be? How could light be a wave and how could light be a particle? Well, Heisenberg, the German physicist, says, guess what? It's both. And what determines whether light travels as a wave or as a particle is your thought. Your thought at a subatomic level causes that outcome. Now apply this within the context of the vocabulary we're using daily, moment by moment, on how we're choosing to co-create. I need to create a better job. Sounds really good, but it's still coming from fear, lack, and reaction, right? I choose to create a powerful job. I choose to create a powerful relationship. I choose to live my life mission, right? Completely different outcome. And this is, again, outlined in great detail within the context of my book and some of the videos I've described. It. I really so sincerely believe we are at this is a pivotal time. I just barely survived COVID. It's like my first day being able to speak. And it was very touch and go. And we have an opportunity to rebirth ourselves, into the kind, loving, caring people, that we all are, every human being. It begins with these three basic questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? And what can I do to contribute to making the world a kinder, more loving, and caring place? When you ask those questions, and from a biblical perspective, knock and the door will open, seek and ye shall find, I'm promising you, you're going to get some big downloads. And the only thing that's required for you to do is take full-blown, courageous action. It's not enough to go, great, I discovered my life purpose and la da da. Take action. I was a small boy playing football in Friendswood, Texas. My dad was a nuclear physicist, aerospace engineer working for NASA and TRW. And one day at recess, at age 8, I'm running the football. No one can tackle me. I'm not big like I am now. And I made it across our goal line, and I literally saw everything stop, like the Matrix stop. I saw everything 360, above, below, simultaneously, and I had some inner message that I'm here to help facilitate peace on the planet. Somehow, the next thing I knew, I appeared to be multiple miles in the sky, free falling like a parachutist into what I now know is Manger Square, Bethlehem. It went away. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't want to end up in a rubber room. I went on about my life, and I was obsessed with racing motorcycles. I kept asking, how can I be a top pro? And one day, these words came through so powerfully clear, I pulled my van over and I wrote it down. It said, limitations are bound only by the mind. The mind is bound only by our perception of those limitations. And I took this to heart, much like, if you will, in Richard Bach's book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. You're never given a dream without also being given the power to make it come true. I've lived my life this way. So I've been guided to work throughout the Middle East. This Palestinian-Israeli conflict is a geopolitical linchpin on this planet. And I've concluded basically this. This whole thing works through sound. This whole thing works through frequency. The Nada Brahma, again, means God is sound, sound is God. I spent 11 years writing a thesis paper on the effects of music and consciousness. We have assembled a team of the most spiritually awake musicians on the planet. And the goal of what we're basically doing through Evolving Planet 7 and over this 7-year campaign we're launching this year is basically this. I believe there are certain musicians, because of their spiritual practice and their devotion, they can tune into what Pythagoras calls the music of the sphere. Now, what is this music of the sphere? In the film Copying Beethoven, Ed Harris plays Beethoven, and the film is about this relationship he has with a woman who's scribing his music, hence the name Copying Beethoven. And in this film, he's a remarkably dismissive and quasi-abusive human being to this very lovely woman who's just trying to help him. And so one day, out of shame and guilt, he puts his fist down on the table firmly. He says, well, what's the deal? Why do you take this from me? Stand up for yourself. And she begins to weep. And she says, I do this because I hope by being in your presence one day, I might be able to write great music like you. And so her words so sincerely move him that he sits with her at the table, eye to eye, to share with her the intimacy and the volition through which this music is occurring through him. And so he says to her the following words, which etched in my heart and soul everything that I'm working for and towards. He says, the vibrations on the ear are the breath of God, speaking to man's soul. Music is the language of God. We musicians are as close to God as man can be. We hear his voice, we read his lips, and we give birth to the children of God who sing his praise. That is what musicians are. And if we are not that, then we are nothing. And that's why these great musicians, I believe, Beethoven, Bach, Chopin, and Mozart, they would write at the top of their compositions, the Latin initials AMDG, ad mortem de gloriam, for the greater glory of God. So again, I believe there are certain musicians, because of their spiritual practice, because of their devotion, they can tune into what Pythagoras calls the music of the spheres. And these are basically a series of frequencies and harmonics which are analogous to what the industrial psychologist Malso would have called a state of self-actualization, or what certain spiritual teachers like Yogananda and or etc. would call a state of self-realization. So in other words, these are thoughts like love, compassion, forgiveness, empathy, these higher orders of thinking which moves consciousness out of a linear and or dualistic right, wrong, good, bad view of the world, and it moves consciousness into a holographic perspective of seeing how everything is lovingly and divinely interconnected. And I believe the soul already operates on this core frequency. Music of the spheres, Om, Amen, Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, Christ consciousness, whatever we want to call it somatically is basically this. And so the goal of what we're doing is if we broadcast global musical prayers for peace, where every note, every lyric, every composition is curated from a position of giving someone a visceral goosebump experience of their own innate divinity. And we broadcast this from these key sacred sites on the planet, Machu Picchu, Chichen Itza, Ayers Rock. By the way, these places weren't built there by coincidence. They're amplifier stations. They're vortexes, whatever we want to call them. And we can reach a mass audience of several 100 million to 1 billion or more people, as we can do with the team we have. Then we can, as Dr. Rupert Sheldrake says, create a frequency and a shift, and shift the global collective consciousness. This is an inside job. Music is one of the most expedient ways to help people realize their inner divinity and to, more importantly, better discern how we think and how we speak and how we choose to co-create. So I thank you so kindly for your time. I hope it's been helpful. My book, The Power of Choice, Success, and Your Life Purpose, is on our website, projectpeaceonearth.org or evolvingplanet7.org under Take Action. The book is, just download it free, share it with any and all. The position paper I've written, I was there, just every resource I have. All I want to do is, help empower our world, help empower people to really know the ultimate truth. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And it begins first by loving ourselves. It's a short distance to our own heart, but it can be a long journey to get there, or not, whatever we choose. Amen. Thank you.